Hello everyone, and thank you for tuning into Long Island Wargaming. And this is going to be a battle report with the new Warhammer Dwarfs. And I'm going to be playing against Chris's list that he's working on for Crossroads 2014. And we are going to be doing 2,500 points, and we're using the Crossroads comp system. And yeah, so let's get into the list that I made with the new book. So, two side notes with this. The first one is the book's only been out for a day or two, so I'm still figuring out some of the new rules, how they work, some of the synergy of the new army. And the second side note is Dwarves was my first army. That's when I started playing 2002 or 2003, I believe. And I started them in 6th edition, played them through 7th edition, and now I'm getting back into them in 8th edition since the new book's out. So with that being said, I have a lot of old models. And they're also not painted that great, and half of them aren't painted, so I apologize in advance if you're looking for a fully painted battle report, because you're not going to find it here. If you want to skip ahead to turn 1, there should be an annotation or a link below in the description. Feel free to jump ahead, but I'm going to go through the list. So, for my lords and heroes, we'll go from right to left. My lord, he's pretty simple, running him on shield bearers and giving him a great weapon and rune of stone. He is my general. He's got his 1-up armor save, and he's got his extra wounds from the shield bearer, so I feel that he's pretty defensive. He doesn't have any magic armor or ward saves, but I think he'll do all right. Next, I have the BSB there in the middle. He is running the Rune of Slowness, and I used the rune 3 times, so it's the tier 3 Rune of Slowness, which means when an opponent charges me, I take not 1d6 but 2d6, roll that, take the highest and subtract that from their charge, and also anyone touching him, any unit touching his unit, or him, I forget which one, but they get always strike last, which is pretty awesome. Dwarves have initiative too. That is really going to help. So, all the way on the left, I've got my Rune Lord. Not a Rune Smith, a Rune Lord, so I'm actually running 2 Lords in this list, which is pretty exciting. He's running a shield, and he's got the Fiery Ring of Thori, which is an ancestral heirloom. It's interesting. It essentially just gives him fire attacks and breath weapon, which I think will be good in combat since he doesn't really have a lot of damage output. 2d6 strength 4 hits should be useful. And he also has his spell breaking rune with only 1 rune on the talisman, so he's got his dispel scroll essentially. So I am going for min core, which means I'm having 35 long beards with shield. I do give them a full command. And then not shown in this picture are my quarrelers. I bring 10 with a shield, and yeah, shield of course. Now they have heavy armor, which is great, and the stone wall. So when they get charged, they will get an extra parry save, but also they don't have -1 when shooting when being charged, which is really cool too. So the quarrelers I think are a viable choice. So for stubborn, I'm going to have 25 iron breakers. They have a standard, not a musician or champion, just the standard. And I give them the Rune of Stoicism, which gives them stubborn. The BSB will end up going with the iron breakers, and then my 2 lords will end up in the hammer unit. As you can see, I have a space for the lord in the middle, and then the Rune Lord on either side, depending on where I want to put them, and then I'll fill back in the hammers. But these guys, no shield. I just gave them the standard, and again, no musician and champion. I don't think the champion is necessary for these guys now that they can all accept challengers as long as the general is in the unit, which is really cool. It's their bodyguard special rule. But I did give them the Straw as rune on their standard, which gives them Vanguard, so they can go ahead and move before the game even starts. And here is where it gets embarrassing with my dwarf army. My gyrocopters are in pieces. They both have like no propellers or wings or whatever you want to call them. But anyway, to finish off my special, the unpainted gyrocopter will be used as a gyrocopter. And then the painted one will be used as a gyro bomber, which is my rare choice. And then I will have a organ gun, which organ guns you can now give runes to, up to 50 points. I gave them the accuracy rune, which is +1 to hit. And then the forging rune, which allows me to reroll a artillery dice. So 2 artillery dice. If I roll a misfire on 1, I can reroll it, and I get +1 to hit, which is nice when it comes to shoot the organ gun. So Chris rolls up his magic. He ends up getting Fists of Gork, Here We Go, the Hand of Gork, Foot of Gork, and Sneaky Stabbing. And here's the battlefield. Chris has already started to make his Vanguard move, which He didn't realize that it would have been best off moving the other fast cav on the other side of the building to counteract the vanguard of the Hammerers, but that was just a misplay. You're not used to having Dwarves with vanguard anyway. But a pretty standard list on Chris's behalf. You'll see it as it comes. Here's just another angle. You can see the Jarrow Bomber and the Gyrocopter and the Quarrelers are off to the left. Hammers, Ironbreakers, Longbeards, and then the Organ Gun behind the line. After the left Wolves Vanguard, the other Wolves, the Hammers go, and then the last unit by the right side of the building goes. So I move up my 6 inches, and then he can only move up 6, staying away 12 inches. And here's just one more shot after the Vanguards. I get all my guys down, however, Chris rolls better for a first turn. I rolled a 1 with my +1, I got a 2, and he ended up rolling a 3, so he got first turn. So there were no issues with animosity. Everyone functioned as normal. Random move, he needed a 19 to get the Hammers with the pump wagon. Far-fetched, but he rolled his 4 dice. He ended up rolling like a 12 or a 13, so he's right there, which is right in front of me. And I'm not really looking forward to dealing with those things because 2d6 strength 5 impact hits, no armor save is just scary with my dwarves. So the rest of his army moves up. I don't have a picture of that, however, I will show you right here the fast cab just coming up to get into the way and prevent me from charging the pump wagon. For Winds of Magic, Chris got 5 dice but channeled, so he got 6, and I got 3. He goes to 6 dice for the Gork, does not get Irresistible Force, so I go ahead and scroll it because he rolled like a 20 something. I just was not going to be able to take that out. First Doom Diver goes and flies in, but falls short with a misfire, and can't fire this turn or next turn. This Doom Diver does make it. He rolls up a 6 and ends up doing 4 wounds to the Ironbreaker unit. One of the Rock Labos goes ahead and rolls a direct hit onto the Hammerers, and ends up peeling off 6 guys. This shot closes off Chris's turn, but gives you a better taste of the deployment, the movement situation where, his Black Orcs are moving up, the Savage Orcs are at the top but out of the frame, but I won't be able to charge the pump wagon, which really sucks. And you can actually see into this picture when I do go ahead and charge that maybe this angle is deceiving, but when we lined it up, an overrun would not clip the pump wagon, so I go ahead and charge here to clear off the chaff anyway. So here's the remaining moves. You could focus in here on the left. The Gyrocopter, or Gyrobomber I should say, goes ahead, flies 20 inches. He makes sure that he flies over the pump wagon. Like you saw before, the Hammers are now in those Wolf Riders. Ironbreakers move up, but not too far. They moved up about 4 inches, and the Longbeards about 3, only because I wanted line of sight with the organ gun against the other what is that, pump wagon. The regular Gyrocopter flies over that one pump wagon, and he will do his dive bomb attack, and he ends up stopping right next to him, and that's it for movement. So I got that line of sight with the organ gun, which is very important. The dive bomb attack and the bomb attack, I believe, happened in the remaining moves sub-phase, which I believe I ended up doing in shooting, so that's just me getting used to the new dwarf rule, but let's go through it. So I actually ended up rolling a 10 on my dive bomb when use only attack, so 10 strength 3 hits. I end up doing enough wounds to kill the pump wagon, so I'm pretty happy about that. Since the organ gun no longer needs line of sight, I decided to shoot against the Black Orcs. I roll a 2 and a misfire. I go ahead and use my Rune of Accuracy and reroll the misfire and get a 10 altogether. And I end up killing about 3 or 4 Black Orcs, which is, okay. Quarrelers kill 4 of the 5 Wolf Riders and send this guy fleeing. So the Gyrobomber should have done this in the remaining move sub-phase, but we did it out of order. He drops a direct hit onto the pump wagon, does his strength 6 hit, and his multiple D3 wounds. He rolls up a 5, so he does 3 wounds to the pump wagon and kills it. So at this point, Chris saw that I was going to be rolling very, very well this game, and odds are he was going to get shit rolls, and that ends up being the case throughout the game. These hammers kill the Wolf Riders outright, and they go to reform to face the Black Orcs, and make sure that the Savage Orcs do not do a flank charge. So my fear of the pump wagon hitting the hammerers led my gyrocopter to end up right in front of the Savage Orc, so he goes ahead and charges them, and he flees. That's my reaction, is to flee through my hammerers. No panic test is caused. I'm on Leadership 10 reroll at this point. A redirect is rolled up, and he needs 11 inches, and with flying colors, the Savage Orcs make it in. The Black Orcs need to do something. They can't just sit there, which we later decided maybe it was in their best interest to not run up the Horde Orc units altogether, but that's for you to decide also, and leave your comments below at the end of the video. But the purple dice are Chris's rolls. So he rolls up a 2, plus his movement of 4, charge range of 6. Not good. He needed to roll like an 8. I go ahead and roll my Rune of Slowness for shits and giggles. I roll a 5, so his charge range this turn is -3, so he only moves up an inch, and I'm happy. And there's the Savage Orcs and the failed Black Orcs. The organ gun was, I think, like 19 inches away, and Chris rolls an 11 plus the 9 that the thing moves, I believe, and he goes ahead and gets the organ gun with his chariot. It's a wolf chariot, not a boar chariot, by the way. Here's the lay of the land. The other chariot is scooping around past the hill, and the cave squigs, the squig guys, are coming around to maybe get an attack on the Longbeards or assist in the combats. Winds of Magic, Chris gets 7 dice, I get 5. He 6 dice his foot again. Why not? He does not get it with this irresistible force. He rolls 2 1s and some 3s. He still gets it off, but you know what? I roll double 6s. I'm happy. No Foot of Gork. Foot of Gork will ruin my day and kill all my Iron Breakers. And I've now prevented it from happening twice. So, the artillery fire and the Doom Diver goes for the fleeing gyrocopter and hopes to maybe sway and hit the hammers. I'm not sure if you could do that, but that's what Chris attempted to do, and he wants to get some hits on the hammers and kill some, but the gyrocopter said no, pulled out his pistol and shot him in the sky. Otherwise known as he misfired, and he can't fire this turn. The rock lava sways and gets a few Longbeards. The second rock lava gets a nice direct hit. And sadly, out of 21 guys, he only wounds 9. And then I roll only 1 failed armor save. Everything else is 4, 5, 6s, which is awesome. So into combat, the flame templates reminding me that my Rune Lord at initiative 3 is going to go ahead and do his breath weapon attack. 2d6 strength 4, and flaming kills 4 guys, which is a nice start. The shield bearers go, and then the Savage Orcs go to town, and they kill 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hammerers. Now you might ask, how is that possible? Choppa's frenzy, extra hand weapon. How is it that they only killed that 6 or 7 guys? The answer is, look at how the Dwarf Lord and the Rune Lord are lined up in the unit. The Rune Lord here on the corner, the Dwarf Lord taking up 2 spaces. Like half his attacks had to go on those 2 heroes, which are all, you know, high armor and high wounds, high toughness. So he struggled to get a lot of wounds on the unit based on the point that he could not actually attack them. But at the end of the day, he pulls off about 17 guys. I'm winning this combat for sure, and he's gonna get Snake Eyes, but he fails that Insane Courage. He flees, and I do not catch him. One thing also worth noting in the new rules, dwarves are no longer pursuing and fleeing at -1, so that's pretty helpful. The Wolf Chariot mows down the organ gun with their spear attacks, and the wolves and the dwarves didn't have a chance there, so he's getting ready to come on to the Longbeards. So for Dwarf turn 2, I'm going to issue a charge with my Ironbreakers against the Savage Orcs. They're going to flee through the Night Goblins and the Black Orcs. A successful redirect roll was made, so I'm going to need an 8 to charge the Black Orcs. I issue that charge, and the Hammerers are going to also have issued the charge against the Black Orcs and make it, and it looks like this, which is pretty upsetting for Chris at this point. He thinks the game is lost, but we roll to see what happens. This Gyrocopter does not rally. With leadership 10, in the Lord's range, he still doesn't rally, so he turns and continues to run. The Quarrelers go and wrap around him so they can see something. In the remaining moves, sub-phase, we do successfully remember to do the dive bomber, the gyro bomber. He rolls a scatter 10, way off from the Night Goblins. He did fly over the Night Goblins, and I'm looking at this and I'm like, wow, this is actually pretty scary because I can drop my bombs and somehow they can still land and hit me, which is interesting. I don't know how that makes sense theoretically if you're dropping bombs, but they sway and hit you. If you roll a misfire, they could hit you, which makes sense. You could do some damage to you, but you can fly over an enemy, but it could sway and still hit you, which is pretty crazy. Funny story, in 6th edition, I actually shot a stone thrower at my opponent. My stone thrower swayed, hit my own gyrocopter, and in that edition, gyrocopters could crash, so then the gyrocopter was destroyed, crashed, and hit my originally intended target and did the damage that the stone thrower was supposed to. But anyway, here's the rest of the movement. You can see the Longbeards get ready for a front charge from either the Squigs or the Chariot, but everything's locked in count with the Black Orcs, and it's an all-in at this point. The hero arrangement ends up working very well again, as I have the 3 heroes locked in the middle, kind of blocking a whole bunch of the guys, forcing them to direct attacks and their support attacks against certain heroes, negating the fact that he can't just destroy units outright. But both these units are stubborn, which I'm happy about, and now that the Ironbreakers are in base contact with the Black Orcs, they have always strike last, which means the Ironbreakers are getting their attacks before they're attacking anyone else, and the Hammers, oh well, they're at always strike last anyway, but who cares? And it looks like this after some grinding. A whole lot of Black Orcs die. Few Hammers, not a lot, only 4 Hammers, and only 4 Ironbreakers. My BSB does die though. A lot of attacks were directed against him, so he does die. This is the last important picture that I actually have for this slideshow, because after this, the Black Orcs break, I run them down, capture them, kill the level 4 caster, hit the back of the Savage Orcs, get the points for them. We don't even bother going into the Night Goblin combat. It was an entire massacre. The Chariot and the Squigs go ahead and actually do a charge against the Longbeards. We roll it up to see what actually happens, and it's still a pretty sad result as the Squigs only kill a few Longbeards and I kill a bunch back. He is actually steadfast, but I end up passing my leadership test. I have leadership 10 for my, leadership 9 -2, so I needed a 7, and I still passed, which was fun. So victory to the new 8th edition Dwarves, very exciting. It only took 2 turns, which is definitely not how it used to be. Dwarves would take forever to kill you because they weren't moving. There was no random move charge in previous rule books, and there weren't Vanguard rules. But yeah, so that's very, very exciting. I don't actually think Chris did anything wrong. The only thing that we talked about, and it's all in hindsight, was maybe not actually rushing into combat, which is like the not orc-like thing to do, and maybe he should have stayed back, took a couple more shots with his artillery, and tried to get foot off a few more times. The organ gun only got 1 round of shooting off, so the Chariot was able to take it down. The only thing would have been maybe the gyro bomber would have caused some issues, but the artillery dealing with that, and maybe the Doom Divers trying to kill a bunch of high armored Ironbreakers would have been good, but honestly, that would have been the only other thing. So with that being said, we are actually going to do a rematch. Same exact lists, change up the terrain, but now that Chris has a better idea of how dwarves play in general, since I don't play my dwarves ever, let alone how the new book works, I think it's going to be a good rematch. So definitely stay tuned for that. So, just some thoughts on the new book. I like it. Getting that extra armor save when I get charged with the stone, the shield wall special rule is awesome. The fact that the Ironbreakers always have it, the fact that when I charged, I got my +1 strength against the Black Orcs with the Ironbreakers, but they also have that 5+ parry save all the time, and I rolled a lot of 5 and 6s for my parry save because Chris was using his Black Orcs with great weapons. Since he already had Always Strike Last, he might as well just endorse it and use the great weapons and go with it. So Strength 7, my armor was gone. My Gromrel and shield was gone. But I saved so many guys with 5/6 armor saves, so very, very cool. The +1 strength in the charge is cool. Does it help my hammers? No, not really. Strength 7, at that point, what's the difference? The Rune Lord having his rune forged weapons, giving them armor piercing, didn't really help me against this army. Maybe if I'm fighting warriors of chaos or someone with monstrous cav or regular cav that they have 1-up armors, it might be helpful then. But the hammers are already doing very nasty armor reduction, so maybe he doesn't belong in there. I didn't mind him being in there because since the hammers are my big important unit in this game, um, getting the magic res 2 is nice, but maybe I'll move him into a different unit so I can make better use of his armor piercing, because getting armor piercing on the Ironbreakers are cool because on the charge there'll be -3 armor reduction or just 2 regularly. So when I constructed this list, I usually had the Fire Drake guys, the Dragon, Drake Gun, whatevers. I took them out. I was bringing like 14 of them, so I'd do 2 ranks of 7, have them shoot. But there was such a huge chunk of points on my roster. I'm looking at my roster right now. The 14 guys was 210 points. Honestly, I just dropped them and added a Lord in on Shield because they were comparable in points values, and having just the Rune Lord wasn't good enough. I wanted to get that Leadership 10 and the, Unstoppable Lord. But anyway, me and Chris will do a rematch. We're probably going to do it this upcoming Tuesday and look for the battle report either Wednesday or Thursday. There will be more snow here on Long Island, so I'm sure I'll be able to catch up on some miniatures and get that battle report up. But hey, listen, if you're new to the channel and you just found me through looking for new dwarf stuff, please subscribe and leave your comments below and let me know what you think. Thanks for watching, guys, and see you in the next one.